The first time they crossed my fence, I figured it was a mistake. The second time, I took pictures. The third time, they drove a bulldozer across my pasture, tore out 200 feet of cedar fencing, and painted bright orange stakes into the ground like they already owned it. By sunset, one of my Angus calves was gone. That was the moment I stopped trying to be a good neighbor. What they didn't know was that the fence they destroyed wasn't just another ranch fence. It marked a property line that had survived over 100 years of storms, droughts, family feuds, and county surveys. My grandfather had rebuilt that same fence after a tornado in the 1970s. My father repaired it every spring. I had replaced every cedar post myself after returning home from the army. That fence wasn't just wood, it was proof. And the HOA had just made the biggest mistake of their existence. My name is Ethan Walker. I'm 42 years old, and I own nearly 300 acres outside Cedar Ridge, Texas. Most people driving past only notice the red barn, the grazing cattle, and the long stretch of weathered cedar fencing running beside the gravel road. They don't notice the history. Every acre carries my family's fingerprints. The old oak beside the pond still has the initials my parents carved before they married. The windmill turns exactly the way my grandfather designed it. Even the gravel road leading to the ranch house follows the original wagon trail from the 1920s. My nearest neighbors had always respected that. Then came Cedar Ridge Estates. 5 years earlier, a developer bought the old Johnson farm bordering my western pasture. Within months, quiet farmland became rows of expensive homes with decorative stone entrances, manicured lawns, and a homeowners association that believed every inch around them should look like their brochure. At first, we stayed out of each other's way. I waved when people drove by, some waved back. Others looked at my cattle as if they'd wandered into a luxury neighborhood by accident. The HOA's first president, Linda Harper, introduced herself one Saturday morning. She arrived in a spotless white luxury SUV wearing pressed khaki pants, polished riding boots that had clearly never touched mud, a navy blazer, oversized sunglasses, and a smile that looked practiced. "Beautiful property," she said. "Thank you. You know, our residents would love better views of the countryside," I laughed politely. "You already have one." She smiled wider. "I mean walking access. Maybe a community trail someday?" I shook my head. "This ranch isn't public land." Her smile faded just enough for me to notice. "I'm sure we'll discuss it again." "We won't." She drove away. That should have been the end of it. Instead, it was the beginning. Over the next year, little things started happening. People walked dogs along my fence line. Kids climbed onto the cedar rails for pictures. Someone cut the chain on one of my gates. A family held a picnic beside my pond until I asked them to leave. Every single time, someone from the subdivision said almost the same thing. "We thought this belonged to the community." It never did. I replaced locks, installed cameras, posted larger signs. Pura vida, pero per especial exigencias. Most people respected them. The HOA board didn't. One afternoon, I found survey flags 20 feet inside my pasture, bright orange, freshly planted. I pulled them out. The next morning, they were back. This time, there were 20. That afternoon, I called the county survey office. The woman who answered checked the permit records. "No active survey has been filed for your parcel." "So who put the markers there?" "I couldn't tell you." I thanked her and drove the property myself. Halfway down the western fence line, I spotted two men wearing reflective vests measuring distances with laser equipment. A white pickup displaying the logo of Cedar Ridge Estate sat nearby. I parked. The men stopped working. "Can I help you?" I asked.
"We're following instructions."
"From who? Or supervisor? Who's paying you?" He hesitated. "The HOA." I stared at him. "That doesn't own this land." He looked toward the subdivision. "We were told the property line was disputed." "It isn't." He quietly lowered the measuring pole. "I think we should leave." Within 2 minutes, they packed everything and drove away. I thought common sense had finally won. I underestimated Linda Harper. 3 weeks later, I received a certified letter. It claimed portions of my western pasture had been mistakenly fenced decades earlier and demanded I remove my fence within 30 days. I laughed out loud. Then I read the attached map. It wasn't even close. Someone had literally drawn a new property line with a red marker. No legal description, no survey stamp. Nothing. Just a line moving nearly 15 acres from my ranch into HOA common space. I drove straight to the county courthouse. The clerk looked at the document for less than 10 seconds before raising an eyebrow. "We didn't issue this." I figured. She disappeared into the records room. A few minutes later, she returned carrying thick property books. She spread old maps across the counter. Every survey since 1918 showed exactly the same boundary. Every deed matched, every legal description matched, every recorded survey matched it. There had never been a dispute, not once. She looked at me. I'd keep these copies, I planned to. As I walked back to my truck, my phone buzzed. It was my neighbor, Ben Collins. "Ethan, you need to get home." "What happened?" "They're at your west fence." "Who's they?" "The HOA." I slammed the truck into gear. Ben's voice turned urgent. "They brought equipment." I didn't ask another question. The courthouse parking lot disappeared behind me as my tires hit the highway. 10 minutes later, I turned onto my gravel road. Dust filled the air long before I reached the pasture. Then I saw it, a yellow bulldozer, 3 HOA board members, workers wearing safety vests, and 2 sections of my century-old cedar fence already lying on the ground. The engine roared as the blade pushed another stretch of fencing flat. Cattle scattered in every direction. I jumped out before my truck stopped moving. "What do you think you're doing?" Linda Harper turned calmly, holding a clipboard like this was just another landscaping project. "We're correcting a property issue. You're destroying my fence. It was built in the wrong place. It was built exactly where the county says it belongs. She smiled. Our survey disagrees. You don't have a legal survey. She shrugged. I have progress to make. Behind her, another cedar post snapped beneath the bulldozer's steel blade. Then I heard something worse, a calf bawling in panic. It was running straight toward the open highway where the broken fence no longer stood. I took off running. The calf slipped through the opening before I could reach it. A pickup coming down County Road 18 slammed on its brakes, tires screaming across the pavement. The driver swerved onto the shoulder just in time, missing the calf by only a few feet. My heart nearly stopped. The frightened animal darted into a ditch, scrambled back to its feet, and disappeared into a patch of mesquite trees. I turned around, breathing hard. The bulldozer was still moving. Linda Harper didn't even look concerned. Instead, she was pointing toward another section of my fence, while one of the board members marked something on a clipboard. "You almost got someone killed!" I shouted. She folded her arms. "We're improving community property. This isn't community property. It will be." That sentence told me everything. This wasn't confusion. It wasn't a survey mistake. It was a land grab. I pulled out my phone and started recording. "State your name." Linda smiled without answering. "You already know it. State your name for the camera. I'm the president of Cedar Ridge Estates OA. And you're ordering workers to remove my fence. We're removing an illegal obstruction. Based on what legal authority? Our attorney has reviewed everything." Really? She looked away. "Workers, keep going." The bulldozer lurched forward again. Another cedar post snapped. I caught every second on video. Ben Collins pulled up beside me in his dusty ranch truck. He stepped out holding his own phone. "I've been recording since they arrived." "Did they show you anything?" "No permits. No survey. No county officials." He shook his head. "They just showed up like they owned the place." More neighbors began gathering along the gravel road. Some lived on ranches nearby. Others lived inside Cedar Ridge Estates and looked genuinely confused. One older woman walked toward Linda. "I thought this land belonged to Mr. Walker." Linda answered without hesitation. "It doesn't." The woman frowned. "I've lived here 3 years. Every map in the sales office showed his ranch next door. Those maps were outdated." I couldn't stay quiet. "They weren't outdated yesterday." The woman looked back and forth between us. "You mean, this is still your property? Every inch?" Her expression changed from curiosity to embarrassment. I had no idea. Linda immediately interrupted. "Please don't interfere with the HOA business." The woman looked at the broken fence. "This doesn't seem like HOA business." Within 15 minutes, a deputy sheriff arrived. Deputy Ryan Morrell stepped out of his patrol SUV and surveyed the scene. The destroyed fence, the bulldozer, my scattered cattle, the growing crowd. He walked straight to Linda. "I am? Did you authorize this work?" "Yes." "Can I see your permits?" She handed him a folder. He flipped through it for nearly a minute. Then he looked at her. "These aren't permits. They're legal documents. They're HOA meeting minutes. Our attorney approved them." Deputy Morales looked at me. "Mr. Walker." I handed him copies of the county property records I'd picked up less than an hour earlier. He compared the documents. Then he quietly asked Linda another question. "Do you have anything from the county?" "No." Court order?" A recorded survey?" "Our survey isn't recorded yet." So you removed this fence without county approval." Linda crossed her arms. "We didn't need approval." Deputy Morales closed the folder. "I think you did." He turned toward the bulldozer operator, shut the machine down. The engine fell silent. The sudden quiet made everything feel heavier. Wind rustled through the grass. Somewhere across the pasture, one of my cows kept calling for her missing calf. Deputy Morales looked back at Linda. "I'm ordering all work to stop until ownership is verified." She didn't like that. "We have a schedule." "You have a stop order." "Our attorney?" "I don't care what your attorney said." His voice stayed calm, but there was steel behind it. "If you continue removing property after I've ordered you to stop, you'll have a much bigger problem." Belinda finally nodded, but the look she gave me promised this wasn't over. The next morning, I walked the damaged fence line before sunrise. The destruction looked worse in daylight. Nearly 200 feet of cedar fencing lay splintered across the pasture. Fresh bulldozer tracks cut through grass my grandfather had once planted. 3 water lines feeding cattle troughs had been crushed. One gate hung twisted from a single hing. I knelt beside one broken cedar post. The wood was old, older than I was. My father had carved the year 1984 into its base after replacing it with my grandfather. Now it was split into 3 pieces. I picked up one fragment and placed it in the back of my truck. Not because I needed it, because someday I wanted a jury to see exactly what the HOA destroyed. By mid-morning, my attorney arrived. Sarah Mitchell had represented ranchers and landowners across Texas for nearly 20 years. She stepped out of her dark blue pickup carrying a leather briefcase and wearing worn cowboy boots that looked like they'd actually seen ranches. She didn't waste time. "Show me everything." For nearly 2 hours we walked the property. She photographed every broken post, every bulldozer track, every damaged water line, every survey flag, every tire mark. She even measured the distance between the original fence line and the orange stakes. Finally she stopped. "Ethan? What? Did you move anything? New? Good." She looked toward the subdivision. "They've made several serious mistakes." "How serious?" She smiled for the first time. "Potentially catastrophic." That afternoon, Sarah requested every AOA record connected to the so-called property dispute. Texas law required them to provide certain documents. 3 days later, several boxes arrived. We spread everything across my dining room table. Meeting minutes, emails, board votes, maintenance budgets, maps, invoices. Sarah read silently for nearly an hour. Then she suddenly laughed. "What? You need to read this." She slid an email toward me. It was from Linda Harper to the board 6 months earlier. "Imagine how much property value increases if homeowners have direct access to open ranch land." Another email followed. "Mr. Walker refuses to cooperate. We may need to establish the boundary ourselves before county involvement slows everything down." Then another. "Once the fence is moved, reversing it becomes expensive for him. He'll probably negotiate." I stared at the screen. "They planned this," Sarah nodded. "It gets worse." She handed me another document. An invoice. The HOA had hired a consulting company, not a licensed county surveyor, to create a concept boundary layout. Across the bottom was a disclaimer in tiny print. "Now far loperota RMNIN." I looked up. They used this. They based their entire operation on it. I leaned back in my chair. "I can't believe this." Sarah closed the folder. "Oh, I can." She tapped the emails. "This wasn't an accident. It was intentional." "Exactly." The following week, certified letters arrived from homeowners inside Cedar Ridge Estates, not complaints, apologies. Several families had watched the videos Ben and I posted online. The footage spread quickly across local community groups. People saw the bulldozer. They saw Linda giving orders. They saw Deputy Morales shutting everything down. One family even enclosed photos taken from their backyard showing the bulldozer entering my pasture hours before the HOA claimed ownership. Another homeowner included security camera footage with timestamps. A retired engineer sent copies of the subdivision's original marketing brochures. Every single one clearly labeled my ranch as private property Walker Ranch. The evidence kept growing. Then Ben called again. "What now?" "You'd better come to the HOA entrance." "Why?" "They're putting up something." "What kind of something?" He paused. "I think they're trying to erase your ranch from the neighborhood map." I grabbed my truck keys. Something told me Linda Harper still hadn't learned where the property line really was. I reached the entrance to Cedar Ridge Estates less than 15 minutes later. Ben wasn't exaggerating. A brand new stone monument stood beside the main gate. Mounted in the center was a polished metal map of the neighborhood. The subdivision streets were engraved perfectly. Then I noticed my ranch, or rather what was left of it. Nearly 15 acres of my western pasture had been colored green and labeled Future Community Nature Preserve. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Several homeowners were already gathered around it. One man shook his head. "They told us construction starts next month." Another asked, "Wet, this is still your land?" "Every inch of it." A woman pointed at the sign. "But the HOA newsletter says they acquired it." "I'd like to know how." Before anyone could answer, Linda Harper walked out of the clubhouse carrying the confidence of someone who thought she had already won. She smiled when she saw me. "Beautiful, isn't it? You engraved stolen land into a permanent sign. We're celebrating the community's future." "No," I replied. "You're creating evidence." Her smile faded. "What does that mean?" "It means every homeowner standing here just became a witness." Several people exchanged uneasy looks. One homeowner pulled out his phone and started recording. Another quietly walked away from Linda and joined Ben beside me. Within an hour, photos of the monument were all over local social media. The comments were brutal. "How can they claim land they don't own? Didn't the sheriff already stop them? Someone's getting sued." By sunset, the story had spread far beyond our county. Sarah called the next morning. The judge signed it. "What?" "The temporary restraining order." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The order prohibited the HOA from entering my property, altering the fence, advertising ownership of my land, or beginning any construction until the lawsuit was resolved. Before noon, Deputy Morales personally served the order at the HOA office. Linda reportedly argued for nearly 20 minutes. The deputy listened patiently before saying one sentence that later became local legend. "Ma'am, court orders aren't suggestions." Over the next several weeks, discovery began. If you've never been involved in a lawsuit, discovery is where the truth usually catches up with people. Emails, phone records, invoices, financial reports. Every document the HOA had hoped nobody would ever read. Sarah's office looked like a war room. Boxes lined every wall. Colored tabs marked timelines. Large maps covered conference tables. Every piece fit another piece. Then came the biggest surprise. A former OA board member contacted Sarah. His name was Daniel Brooks. He had resigned months before the fence incident. He wanted to testify. During his deposition, Daniel admitted he repeatedly warned the board they had no legal authority to move my fence. Linda ignored him. Then he revealed something even worse. Months before the bulldozer arrived, Linda had already signed a landscaping contract for the future nature preserve. She approved almost $180,000 in HOA funds before the HOA owned a single square foot. She wasn't planning. She was gambling with everyone else's money. The county hired an independent licensed surveyor to settle every argument once and for all. His name was Robert Hayes. Unlike the consultant the HOA hired, Robert carried decades of experience and had testified in court many times. For 3 full days, he examined original deeds, monuments, historical markers, aerial photographs, and survey records dating back more than a century. Homeowners watched from their backyards. Local reporters even stopped by. When Robert finished, he gathered everyone near the fence line. His conclusion couldn't have been clearer. The existing Walker Ranch fence follows the legal property boundary within accepted surveying standards. He paused before adding another sentence. The HOA construction crossed onto Mr. Walker's property by approximately 14.8 acres. Silence. Then dozens of cameras started clicking. Even people living inside Cedar Ridge Estates applauded. Linda stood completely still. For the first time since this nightmare began, she had nothing to say. The trial began 3 months later. The county courthouse was packed. Ranchers, reporters, homeowners, county officials. Even law students from a nearby university attended because property rights cases like this rarely reach trial. Sarah opened with one photograph. My grandfather standing beside that same cedar fence 50 years earlier. Then she held up another. The bulldozer crushing it. Ladies and gentlemen, she told the jury, this case isn't about landscaping. It's about whether someone with enough confidence can simply decide another citizen's land belongs to them. The HOA attorney argued it was an honest misunderstanding. Then Sarah played Linda's emails. Once the fence is moved, reversing it becomes expensive for him. The courtroom became so quiet I could hear pages turning. Next came Ben's deputy Morale's testimony, Robert Hayes' survey, the subdivision brochures, the monument sign, the consulting company's disclaimer stating their map was never intended for legal boundaries. Every piece pointed in one direction, intent, not confusion. Then Linda testified. She insisted she believed she was acting in the community's best interest. Sarah approached with a single folder. Harper, yes. Did you authorize payment for landscaping inside the proposed preserve? Wes, when? Several months before construction. So, before you legally owned the property. She hesitated.
What expected ownership?
You expected it. Yes.
Sarah walked closer. Did Mr. Walker ever agree to sell?
No.
Did the county crew approve a transfer? No. Did any court award ownership? Sarah nodded. So you spent homeowners' money improving someone else's ranch. Linda looked toward the jury. No answer came. Closing arguments lasted less than 2 hours. The jury deliberated for only 4. When they returned, everyone stood. The foreperson unfolded the verdict. Who find in favor of the plaintiff? I closed my eyes. We award full compensation for property damage. My attorney squeezed my shoulder. Loss of livestock. Legal expenses. Then came the number. Punitive damages, large enough that several people in the courtroom gasped. The judge wasn't finished. He issued a permanent injunction preventing the HOA from entering my property without written permission. He also ordered the HOA to remove every map, brochure, monument, and advertisement claiming ownership of my land. Finally, he referred evidence of document irregularities and financial decisions to county investigators for further review. Linda looked like she'd aged 10 years. Over the next few months, everything changed. The broken fence was rebuilt using cedar cut from my own ranch. Each post stood exactly where the originals had stood. Neighbors volunteered their weekends to help. Even several homeowners from Cedar Ridge Estates showed up with gloves and post hole diggers. One man admitted, "We believed what we were told." "I know," I answered. "What can we do?" "You already are." The monument at the subdivision entrance disappeared. A simple neighborhood sign replaced it. New HOA leadership was elected. Their first official action was delivering a handwritten apology to my front porch. Not because a judge ordered it, because they wanted to. Ben framed a newspaper clipping with the headline, "Historic Ranch Wins Landmark Property Rights Case." He hung it in my barn. I laughed every time I saw it. Nearly a year later, I was repairing a gate when a little girl and her father stopped along the fence. The girl looked at the cattle grazing peacefully. "Is this your ranch?" I smiled. "It has been for a very long time." She pointed at the sturdy cedar fence. "That's a nice fence." I rested my hand on one of the posts. "It sure is." Her father thanked me for preserving the land instead of selling it. I watched them drive away before looking across the pasture. The windmill turned slowly. The cattle grazed quietly. The same oak tree still stood beside the pond. Nothing about the ranch had changed, except one thing. Nobody questioned where the fence belonged anymore. Because sometimes the strongest boundary isn't built with cedar posts or barbed wire. Sometimes it's built with truth, patience, and the courage to stand your ground until the whole world finally sees the line that should never have been crossed. The HOA crossed one fence too many, and that fence became the line they could never erase.